Now today, we're talking about the EFIs, the carbs, and the horsepowers.
Oh my God, Mitch, I appreciate it.
Welcome back to the garage, the place where we're making your classic car your dream classic car. Hey, if this is your first time here, I would love to have you subscribe. I'm putting out how-to videos for the weekend mechanic and talking classic car upgrades for the classic car community. Now I'm going to stop you right here before we get too far into this video. If you are looking for like an electronic fuel injection versus a carburetor dyno results, this isn't the video for you. This is mainly a video where a guy is going to stand in front of the camera and talk about what is the pros and cons of a carburetor versus EFI. This is my 1975 Ford Bronco. I've installed 2 EFI units on my Bronco, so I have a really good idea of what it takes, what it costs, and what the pros and cons are. So even if you're a professional mechanic, this probably isn't the video for you. This is more for the guy who has a classic car and he just wants to be able to jump in it every day and be able to drive it without doing a bunch of work to it each time he wants to get in it and take it for a drive. Now, if you found any of this information helpful, please give the video a thumbs up. All right, let's get into it. Carb versus EFI. All right, so number 1, cost. The carburetor wins on this one, like hands down. You could buy a double pumper 15,000 CFM with a flux capacitor carburetor for cheaper than you could get the base EFI system for. I tell people a lot of times, if you're thinking about doing an EFI swap on your engine, plan for at least $2,000 for the entire kit, for fuel lines and fuel pump and then the throttle body and all of that stuff. And the second thing is originality. Now, obviously you can hide a lot of stuff with a big air cleaner or something like that, but you know, when you're talking about carburetor versus like a throttle body injection or this Edelbrock Pro Flow with the port injection, like, it's not original. Like, this isn't an original period correct, you know, engine now, because I've added this EFI and it's obvious, but it's not just the throttle body. It's the, you know, fuel rails now that are on here. It's all the extra wiring that's going into this. It's the fuel pressure regulator that I have back here. Like, there's a lot of stuff that comes with the electronic fuel injection units to add that electronic element to it that the carburetor just doesn't have. So another one for the carburetor is originality. And number 3, ease of installation, and the Carb is going to win this one as well. There's just 4 bolts on the carburetor. You know, you can see with the Edelbrock Pro Flow that there's so much that goes into installing it. Same with the FiTech, same with any of these EFI units. There's always more than just swapping the 4 bolts on the throttle body. And number 4 is ease of use. Now, this is where the electronic fuel injection really shines, because every time you hop in your Bronco or your classic car, you don't have to adjust the carburetor based on what the atmospheric conditions are like. It works every time you put the key in and you fire it up. Now, before I put my FiTech on, I kept failing my emissions tests. And, you know, it was just one of those things where I couldn't get my carburetor to tune in such a way that it would pass emissions. It ran pretty good, but it wouldn't pass emissions. I threw the FiTech on there and I passed with flying colors the first time. So the EFI, it's just easier to use on a day-to-day basis for the weekend mechanic, for the guys with just a classic car who just want to get in and drive. And number 5 is performance. Now, I didn't do a comparison of my carburetor versus EFI on the dyno test, but seat of the pants feel is the EFI has a lot more power. Now, that could have just been a ton of different things. The thing is, like, it really just woke the engine up, and I feel like it gave it that, like, just kind of fresh breath of life that it needed. Now, maybe a Carb could have done that as well, but really for me, putting the EFI on here, putting the FiTech on that first time, really woke the engine up in a fun way. Number 6 is fuel economy. Now this is a big one. This is a lot of the reason why people switch over to electronic fuel injection. And I will say that it definitely is better, but it's not, you know, gonna pay for itself in a year. Like on my Bronco, I was getting, I think it was 9 miles to the gallon with the carburetor. And then I put EFI on here and I think I started getting up to 11, maybe 12 miles to the gallon, but simple math. So let's just say that you drive 10,000 miles a year in your classic car, which is way more than all of you drive. But for math, 10,000 miles a year. And let's say that you gained 1 mile per gallon switching over to EFI. So that's about 100 gallons of fuel that you have just saved throughout your year. So if we multiply that by the price of fuel, depending on when it is or who is the president, let's say $3 a gallon, that's $300 that you just saved. Obviously, that's not enough to pay for an EFI unit, but let's say that you end up saving 3 miles per gallon. Well, now you're at $900 if you drive 10,000 miles per year, which most of you are probably driving like 2,000. But you know, that's the kind of math that you can do to figure out how cost effective it can be. But in all honesty, I will say that it is most of the time better on fuel economy because of the wideband O2 sensor. And that's that sensor that you cut a hole in your exhaust, you put the sensor in there, and it reads your air-fuel ratio mixture. And out of that is where, you know, you get more fuel or you get more air put into your engine based on the conditions of, you know, the atmospheric conditions, based on how you're driving and all that stuff. So the more that this learns, the more that it adjusts your AFR, and the better that your engine is, the more fuel economic that your engine is. So EFI definitely, hands down, will win the battle on fuel economy. All right, so final thoughts. I know a lot of you guys are gonna respond to this video like, see, we just proved it that the carburetor is better. In all honesty, I love my EFI systems. I've loved having EFI. I feel like it's woken up the engine. I feel like it is more fun to drive with the electronic fuel injection. It's definitely easier to get started in the morning. It's easier to just get it going. And my garage doesn't stink like gas all the time. That was a huge thing with my carburetor. Again, I know tuning issues were right here, but man, it smelled like gas all the time, and it doesn't smell as strong of gas. Sometimes it still does, but I mean, really, I know that all the facts point to a carburetor, but really, if you are thinking about doing an EFI swap, it's a lot of fun. But here's the thing, if you've agreed with any of these points, give me a thumbs up down below. And if you are one of those carburetor guys and I've missed a crucial part, leave it in the comments below. I know you carburetor guys love to comment on my videos about EFI, and there's legit reason to it. Like, some of you guys are like hardcore carb guys. I will never make more performance than you, like, period. But this is so easy to drive. So those are my thoughts on if you should get an EFI or a carburetor. Hope you guys found this video helpful. I'll see you next time.